welcome and hello. I am truly excited that you are here because today I want to do something a little bit different because I want to tell you a story of how my oracle, the oracle of the 13 mothers, how it came to life. At the end of this story, I believe that you will see how something from the 5D really came here into the 3D, into something that I am literally holding into my hands right now. And the reason for me wanting to share the story behind it is because I really hope that by sharing my story, you will recognize something within your own patterns, within your own synchronicities that can help you in unfolding, linking the 3D and the 5D together into one. For those who don't know me yet, I'm an astrologer, I'm an Akashic Records reader, and I work with light language. And during one of my own spirals of awakening, this light-coded oracle deck came to life. So this creation is very personal because each time that I'm sharing this story, people tend to recognize something within themselves through a synchronicity or a similarity, or there is this version of a memory, something that comes back to them. And I really believe that whenever we connect with people, whether it is through a dream or through real life or even through a video like this, it is really not random. There is this mirror effect. There's something there for us that pulls us in and that we connect with and that helps us unfold something within ourselves. It brings us always back to within. So for today, the story that I want to share with you, I want to go into how my own birth date turned out to be a code of soul memory. Then I also want to share with you a download that I received and what the effect was of really trusting that download. And then by the end, I want to share a dream that felt as permission for me to bring this into the world. So let's dive right in. So I was born on Friday the 13th. So some people might know, some people might not, but Friday the 13th is branded quite unlucky, but it was not always like this. An ancient era in which people actually saw Friday the 13th as a very sacred day, a day of the divine feminine wisdom, a day connected to the 13 moon cycles that we have as women. And it was really recognized as a day of intuition, into feeling into the cycles of life, feeling into the cycles of death and rebirth and fertility and how those all come together, but also really how something must end in order to grow again. Yeah, like death and rebirth. In ancient civilizations, they saw this day as a day of very liminal space where the veil was very thin between being awake and being asleep, between being alive and being dead. So there was really this sense of where intuition could speak very clearly, where everything could come in very naturally. So they saw this as this connection between being here on earth and being beyond. It was really this possibility of that communication, of seeing through the veil and being connected to the 13 cycles of the women. It was really this lunar day, what we now in astrology call like the yin sign. It's very feminine. But then when the patriarchy came to power, one of the first things that they did was actually turn this day completely around. So instead of making this like a sacred day that was honored to have this connection where women would naturally have this strong intuition and these communication with the beyond, and this day of where expansion was very naturally and very flowing, they made this day, think to yourself, like, what is the easiest way to take away sovereignty, to take away the empowerment of people, and to take away the feeling that we could trust our own intuition? The opposite of that is fear. So how they branded this day, Friday the 13th, was actually with fear. Like quite literally, like bad things would happen on this day, or bad luck would happen on this day. So people started to move away from the frequency of love and trust and surrendering into this feeling of fear. So the whole sacredness of this day, how I see it, is that it was branded the whole opposite of it. One day I was wondering, and it happened to be in a week where there was a Friday the 13th, I was wondering what was the very first Friday the 13th? When did the unlucky branding start? And I typed that into Google. It just came to mind. I typed it in. One of the first hits that I saw was France, sunrise 1307. And I just remember that by those three things, my body reacted. So I literally felt this shivering through my body because I straight away recognized, okay, I am born on 1307. In Europe, we say first the date and then the month. And then I'm also born at sunrise, just before, a few minutes before dawn. That just made me like stand still for a second. What is this actually? And it happened to be the fall of the Templar Knights. It was completely new to me, but in that moment there were two things that I straight away wanted to do. So I wanted to see the astrological chart of that moment. I am born in July. According to my Google research, the first recorded Friday the 13th was not in July, it happened to be in October. I found a way to find the astrology chart, I looked it up, and then again I had this reaction because what I found, the similarities were like they amazed me. So in the actual guidebook of the Oracle deck, I go much more into depth. I give more information of the actual chart, but just to name a few, there were a lot of 13s in there. So the North Node was at 13 degrees of Libra. The midheaven, the closest point to the heavens, the highest point in the sky, was at 13 degrees of Cancer. Saturn was also at 13 degrees of Capricorn. So there were a lot of 13s in there, and there were also a lot of similarities with the year, with the generational planets in the year that I'm born in. So there I could already start to feel the story coming through. I could start feeling the soul memory coming through. And the second thing that I did was that I regressed myself back to that day. So I went into a past life regression, and I arrived just before dawn on that Friday in France, and I arrived into this back room, and it was, so the fall had not happened yet. It was very early in the morning. I arrived, I opened the door, there was a woman standing there, and this woman was holding a book in her hands. And so I approached this woman, and the woman opens the book, and what happened then is that it was filled with light codes. Now I had been already going through a spiral of awakening where a lot of my own light codes were coming in. They were being activated. So I was already working with that, but I never had the experience of encountering that in a past life. And from there, actually the past life regression, I moved away from that life, and I actually went into a completely different environment where the light codes were coming to life, so to speak, where the symbols were all around me, and I went into a completely different lifetime during a flood. And that is connected to a completely different story, but it showed me a pattern throughout lifetimes, and it showed me the connection to Friday the 13th. So I never experienced in the past life the actual fall of the Templar Knights of that day, because I arrived before and I left before, but I received that book of codes, and I will come back to why that is relevant. So just a few days later, it was actually Friday the 13th, and I had a photo shoot for my business. And while I was in the grass and I was kneeling down and I was actually touching the ground with my bare feet and with my hands, and I was just connecting with the earth, I saw a bird, a green parrot, face down. And while I was seeing that, I was feeling the ground around it, and I could feel how it was silenced. And I straight away noticed, okay, this birth has passed, and I was giving the birth my prayers, and I could feel it. I could feel how silenced it was. And also the girl that was taking the photos, we both felt it. And I moved on with my day. What happened in the weeks after was that I started to draw, and I started to draw a lot of light codes. I already was drawing these light codes on black papers, but then they also started to come in with certain frequency messages and memories and really recalls of dreams that I already had in the past or meditations, and they all, like all the codes were starting to come together. And I just kept drawing, and at one point I started to realize, oh my god, I am actually creating an oracle deck. So it was really a collection of these different experiences, of these codes coming in that then translated into the oracle deck. And that's what I meant with in the beginning when I said really trusting this download before I could make sense of it, because there were parts of me that were wondering, like, why do I keep drawing these things? Why do I keep feeling these frequencies coming in with these messages? And I just allowed it. And a big part was also of my own spiral of awakening. I was going through these lessons myself, because I believe that we always continuously going on these spirals of awakening, and sometimes we come to the same point and we are there for a while, but then we go on another expansion spiral, so to speak. So what I would really love to share with you is that it didn't make sense yet, but I trusted it. I just trusted the flow of creating those drawings, trusting the flow of these light codes coming in, and I didn't really have to make sense of it. in that moment. And within the actual deck, there are 13 frequencies, 13 mother frequencies. And what I mean with that is not only the mother as in the mother who births in the traditional sense, it's the mother of creations, different frequencies from here on Earth, but also beyond. It's connecting the Earth frequencies with the galactic frequencies and really combining them together. And the very moment that I typed the last word of the guidebook, so I did first all the drawings of the codes and the actual cards, and then I wrote the messages of the guides in the guidebook. And as I was really creating the last words of the deck, I looked at the clock, and as I really typed the very last word, it said 1333. That was such another synchronicity, because it's one with 333. It's like taking the lead and then 3 creations coming to a completion. It felt like a ceiling of that deck then being completed, and through the 13 different mother frequencies. And that also reminded me in that moment to look up the actual chart of the birth of that deck. So I saw that as the birth of the deck, that exact moment that I typed that very last word. And also the chart is actually in the guidebook, and I have a little interpretation with it. I don't want to make this too long, but just to give one example, it really shows through the rising sign of the deck being a Sagittarius rising at 29 degrees that is conjunct the galactic center, that is truly a merge of the different frequencies of Earth and the galactic, but also coming from that center, coming in via Sagittarius, like this higher truth dropping in. I found that so specific to see that. But then, even when the deck was finished, I wasn't truly sure of how to proceed with it or what to do with it. And I created a few sample decks. I have one right here, and it is different than the deck is right now. So in that moment, I thought, okay, so what's next? How actually to go on with this oracle journey? And I let it be for a little bit. And then during Christmas, what happened is that I had a dream. I believe it was Christmas evening or it was Christmas day. And I had a dream. And in that dream, I have the opportunity to speak my truth, to let my voice be heard. And I decide to do so. And in the moment that I do, dozens of parrots fly over me. So they come from behind and they fly right over me. And they were all alive. They were full of life force energy. And that was for me such a confirmation, seeing on, like when I first started with that deck, finding that silenced parrot face down on Friday the 13th, a day that has been silenced. And then in that dream, having these parrots fully alive, I woke up feeling like, yeah, this is the moment to start sharing this deck, to start sharing the frequency of that no longer being silenced, and to bringing that, to give it back. It was never gone, not really. It was buried. It was not remembered anymore. But now to have that opportunity to share that. And that's also what I have noticed with this deck. It's a deck that you like stepping into, like my body of work, the 13th temple. It is like that temple-like. You step into it and it creates this spiral of awakening. Each card has this practice to it. It has either a key code or a ritual, or there is this practical aspect of it. And it also has this historical aspect of it. So it combines that again. Those ancient codes with the galactic codes, they are really merged in this deck. And that is also my hope, that people who are using this, that they find their own intuition and that they find their own inner mother, their own inner creation, to really remember that from within. So yeah, with that dream, I knew I am going to share this deck. So after that, I did a Kickstarter campaign, which was funded and has been completed. So right now it's actually available. And I will put the link right here. I will also put the link below. And to just share briefly is that I created these bundles in combination with one-to-one sessions, because I believe that when we are going through these spirals and that we are stepping into this intuitive self, this soul self, that it is so valuable to have that mirror aspect during sessions, and then also now to have something practical to work with that you can do in your day-to-day life. That's why I created these bundles, or solo the deck. It is all available now. So with that, I thanking you for holding the space for me to share this story. It's a very personal story, and I hope that with that you recognize some codes, some synchronicities in your own life. And if you did, please feel free to share them. I would love to witness you in the comments below. And I'm sending you a lot of love, and until the next one.